to start? I guess
The beginning.
how did I get involved in this crazy deal? So I sold books 9 summers, and my first summer I wasn't very good. My first summer I was trying to prove the company wrong by doing more demos than 30 a day and not selling anything. I don't know why, I was just stubborn with it. But when I got into Family Heritage, similar situation. So I started in October, and my first meeting was I think in Chicago, and I didn't do very well my first couple months, but someone said, I think you said one of the attitude things that you do is you go to national sales meetings, right? I remember going to a national sales meeting and I saw some of these people walk across the stage who had accomplished all this stuff, and I was like, instead of why am I not doing well? It was like, why can't I do well? If all these people are doing it, okay, there's nothing special about these people who are walking across the stage other than they're believing they can. And so then it kind of clicked. I'll tell you another click for me in my career. I didn't know anything about cancer before I came into this business. The reason I came in this business, it was a sister company of Southwestern at the time, and I loved the culture of Southwestern. I wanted to be in that for as long as I could, but I couldn't figure out the recruiting part, and so I was better for them than they were for me because I was working all the time. I had no idea about cancer. I knew it was a bad word, but I did the sales talks, you know. And I came across this farmer, and I hope he's still a client. I haven't been out there in a long time, but I said, who's the closest person you know who's dealt with cancer? He goes, my boss. Okay, now this is a 23-year-old kid, okay, and he's a farmhand. So I was like, well, tell me more about it. And I opened up my notebook, and it's like, okay, he had cancer, and he had to go down to Houston. He flew, you know, and I'm like, okay, how many days was he in the hospital? He was in this X amount of days. Okay, great. And I showed him the plan, and I showed him how this policy would have helped his boss had he had the plan. I go, how would you like to have a plan for you just in case? He's like, sweet. I said, well, I'd like to go talk to your boss. He's like, well, he can't qualify. I'm like, well, does he have a wife and kids? He's like, oh yeah, sure. So he points me in the direction of his boss, and I knock on the door, and this young lady comes to the door. And I go, hey, is your mom here? And she goes, excuse me, I'm the mom of the house. And it clicked that I had this picture of a boss of a 24-year-old being like a 50 to 60-year-old person. So when I knocked on that door, it was like, who are you, right? Well, Mike was 20 years old when he got lung cancer. And I did an intro with her and said, hey, let me just introduce what I do for you, and then you tell me if I can come back and share this with both you and Mike, you know? So she said, sure. So I came back and I showed him the plan, and he goes, where were you when I was helping? I said, Mike, you were 20 years old when you got lung cancer. You didn't smoke. You didn't get smoker's cancer. Never had a family history of it. Why would you have bought? He goes, you're right, I probably wouldn't have. I go, now, your wife and kids qualify. You qualify for the ICU. How would you like to have a plan for them just in case? He goes, I don't think we'll need it. And I said, well, isn't that what you would have said years ago, and wouldn't you rather have it, not need it, than need it, not have it? Like, we're taught, right? They bought, okay? So back in the day, they used to mail out your register to you, and you got to see what your policies were, and you get to see who got paid claims and things like that. And I saw $9,000 paid to Mike and Julie Schaefer. And I called up Mike, and I was like, Mike, this is amazing. How is it we were able to pay you for your cancer? You shouldn't have been covered on the plan. You were excluded because he's like, no. Julie. She went in for a back surgery, and on the MRI, when they were looking for back issues, they found a spot on her kidney. And we've had surgery and da-da-da-da-da-da. Rob, thank you. You know? And so then it became, okay, all right, I get it now. You know? When you have a claim in this business, it takes it to the next level. And Guys, we work for a great company in terms of their claims. I've never had a problem with the company not doing what they were supposed to be doing. The only problems I've had with claims is my customers had higher expectations than what the policy said it was going to do for them. But never have I ever had a problem with a claim being paid out. And from what I understand, that's not all that common with every company out there. Now, I don't know, that's what we're told, so we believe what we're told. But when I sold books, and Zig Ziglar says, you don't sell books, you sell the idea of education, When we're selling insurance products, we're not selling a piece of paper, we're selling peace of mind, When I sold books, I had a hard time because I was telling Mark this yesterday, I think it was Mark. I was a long-haired hippie dude in college that wanted nothing to do with business, nothing to do with corporate culture. I wanted nothing. I was a Jesus lover. I was involved in King's Crusade for Christ, and I was going to go on staff with a ministry. That's where I thought I was going. And so when the idea of selling books door to door was like, it doesn't really grab me, but I can get behind helping families. And so when I changed from I'm selling insurance to all I want to do is help families, man, I can do that all day long, and that's what I've just done is I just help families, help families, help families. You guys were talking about attitude stuff, man. There's no way to be nervous when your mind's on service. Helping families, helping families, helping families. Who's next? Who's next? I don't feel like, and I tell people this, I go, my job is not to sell you on this policy. My job is to explain this to you, and the people that want it, they buy it, and the ones that don't, I leave them in a good mood. Really, it's not a big deal. We've got great products, they sell themselves. My job is just to show it to as many people. Your job is just to look at your situation, weigh out it, and then decide if it's something you want or not. Really simple, And having that service-minded attitude, I think, is what serves me all throughout my career. And I remember when I was knocking on doors and I used the company approach and like, hey, my name's Rob and I'm talking to families about cancer, and I got into a house and I'm like, well, who's the closest person you know who's dealt with cancer? And he goes, well, my sister, but are you a doctor? Why are you talking to people about cancer? And I was like, whoa, I'm not trying to deceive people. So then my approach started to be like, hey, my name's Rob McLean, I'm talking to all these families in the area. Hey, before you let me in, can I take 30 seconds and tell you what it is I do? And then you tell me whether I should cross you off my list or we should continue talking. Sure. Hey, I'm with a company called Family Heritage. I talk to people about cancer. I know it's not pleasant. For most people, it's a reality. If you don't mind me asking, who's the closest person you know, friend, neighbor, family member, who's dealt with it? Like, oh, so-and-so. I go, well, here's what I do. Real simple. All these families that I've talked about, I've used my names list, they have great health insurance through work. Do you get health insurance through work too? Great, super. Well, these families know that if something cancer or intensive care were to happen, their health insurance pays doctors and hospitals. That keeps doctors and hospitals going. I sell policies to these families that help them with costs not covered, like lost income, deductibles, copays, travel expenses. They like that it pays on top of all the other insurance they have. They like it covers their spouse, them, and their children. But what they really like is if they don't end up using the plan, they get all their money back. So that's what I do. So only purpose of me stopping by was just to introduce myself. Would you be open to me visiting with you another time when you knew I was coming, where you could ask me some questions and I could ask you some questions to see if it's a fit for you? No. Super. Thanks. Who's next? Or yes. Great. When's a good time for me to come back when you and your husband are both here? And it was so easy at that point. And I remember people told me, well, you're missing a lot of sales by doing it that way. But I read a book called Go for No. John, you've read it?
A long time ago.
Go for No is all about, hey, set a no goal. Don't set a sales goal, set a no goal of how many no's do you want. And don't finish your week until you hit that amount of no's. So I was getting a lot of no's up quick, and then the ones that wanted to hear about it, I'd set up appointments with, and guess what? Those people bought it. Because they already knew what it was before I came to them and things like that. Now, transition that into the school deal. I'm with James, and Ty gives me and I'll just be up front. When he called me and he's like, hey, I'd like to talk to you about working ensuring success. And I'm like, okay, that's working with schools. He's like, yeah. I'm like, well, I don't know if you're going to be able to teach me anything that I already know. I'm already working with this school district and this school district. And I had done that because I got a client. The way I got into schools originally was I had a client who bought a policy, and she had breast cancer, and I serviced the claim. And here, write this down. Service your claims. Don't give them a company number. You service the claim. Okay? And I serviced the claim, and this person got paid $17,000. And when I sat down with them, I was like, hey, are you glad you had this policy? Yes. Okay, are you happy with the service that I provided you? Yes. Would you mind writing a testimonial for me, first and foremost? Yes. And then, hey, who are some families that you know that I could say hi to, and based on who you are, they may listen to me? Hardest part about my job isn't finding people that like this and can afford it, it's just catching people's attention. And you obviously have lots of people who know you've dealt with cancer. Hey, can I share my story of how we helped you with all these other families? And it was like, oh, sweet. So they gave me like 20 different referrals. And one of the people was their grandson, and their grandson was married to a kindergarten teacher. Kindergarten teacher bought a plan, and she referred me to the principal. Principal says, hey, why don't you come to an after-school meeting sometime? So I was already doing after-school meetings without even knowing about ensuring success. And then it was like, okay. And then throughout the, my 10 years of residential selling, I sold a lot of different teachers, and I was working through schools without being in the building, but just by being like, hey, who's the kindergarten teacher? Who's the second grade teacher? Who's the third grade teacher? So what Ty has done for my lifestyle design is now I'm not working till 8 o'clock at night and driving 2 hours to get home and getting home at 10 o'clock. I'm done by 2 o'clock, and I'll be home by 4 o'clock. So that's what ensuring success has done for me, but I don't even know where I'm going. I'm just all over the place. Is this helpful? Are we doing good?
Yeah.
Okay.
Hey, question. Say that again when you're asking for referrals. Who do you know that based on who you are will sit down and take?
So the hardest part about, so when I'm sitting down and how many of you guys were on the conference call? Oh, I don't know. Are you? Never mind. I did a legacy conference call. You guys aren't on the legacy call. Okay. So I did a conference call on referrals a while back, and that's how I used to do my business when I was living in Colorado. My business was 95% referrals, or almost 100% referrals, and then I would just do the T approach to the different doors that I was going to and whatnot. And I do that with the businesses now, and you can do that, Jackie, when you're calling on a business, you can go to the business next door, and you can go to the business across the street here, and you can go to the business across the street here. And the approach, like when I went to the city of Pea Ridge, I didn't have a sales talk for working with cities, but it's like, hey, I work with the school district of Pea Ridge. And Rick Neal's the superintendent, and he's allowed me to work with all of his employees. I just wanted to introduce myself and see, hey, would you let me talk to all your employees? Like Rick let me talk to his. Well, sure. Great. When's a good time for me to come and talk to the department heads or whatever, But so when I was working referrals, so I get done, when you're, the hardest thing is getting the snowball going, right? But once the snowball is going, the momentum gets going really good. So when I was working referrals well, and I would say, hey Mark, the reason I'm here is because Ty referred me to you, and then he was referred by Curtis Rogers, and he was referred by Keith, who, I'm looking at my names list, and I'm just telling stories. Like, this is how I got to you, this is how I got to you, this is how I got to you, this is how I got to you. So I'm already planting the seed, right? I work by referrals, okay? So at the end of the meeting, and I'm like, okay, so I sign the person up, and I'm like, let me ask you a couple questions. One, are you comfortable with this purchase? I didn't twist your arm or, solidifying the sale, right? And are you upset at all, Mark, that Ty passed your name on to you?
Nope.
To me, sorry. And are you comfortable with the way I approached you?
Yeah.
Cool. So maybe I could ask your help. The hardest part about my job isn't finding people that like this and can afford this. Hardest part is just catching people's attention. So if I could ask your help, who are 3 to 4 people that you know, and that based on who you are, they may be willing to listen to me? Not that they'd be willing to buy, but just that I could say hi to and say you sent me. And then I'll give them